everyone. My name is Soumya Dubey from the Economic Times HR World. I'm super excited, as you see, to be your host for this much awaited season 2 of Talent in Talks, a new age talent mindset dialogue series presented by the LinkedIn Talent Solutions and the Economic Times. So, gear up for a new era in talent management where technology led transformations have reshaped workplace dynamics and strategies from routine to reform. We present an exclusive series of industry dialogues and fireside chats featuring the top leadership voices of the country. Together, we will explore the latest trends, challenges, and opportunities shaping the talent management in the resilient future ahead. In today's episode, we're going to explore how organizations align talent with evolving job requirements and foster competencies for the future. I'm super elated to welcome the dynamic duo joining me in this chat, Jyoti Dadlani, Regional Head, West India, LinkedIn Talent Solutions, who will be in a power conversation with Amit Chincholikar, Global CHRO, Yokohama Off-Highway Tires. And together they will share their insights and vision for the future. Hi Amit, hi Jyoti, welcome.
Hey, hi Soumya. Hi Jyoti.
As we get into this enlightening conversation, for my viewers, do share your thoughts in the comments as we embark on this learning journey together. And without any further ado, Jyoti, it's over to you now.
So, Amit, I think my first question to you is, what does talent mindset mean to you? And how does it really play out as you think about, growth and innovation in the industry and for your company?
So look, a talent mindset really is about investment. Talent mindset really is about saying that the only job that any leader has in a company is to manage people. There is no other job. Because everything else, which is technology, finance, land, labor, capital, enterprise, is something you can effectively buy. It's reasonably available from an abundance perspective in pretty much the same way. The only thing you actually don't have captive knowledge of or predictability of is your human capital. So a talent mindset really is around saying that that's the only job that any leader has in an organization. How do you drive growth and innovation? It is sometimes just by letting people be. The second point is, if you have to drive growth and innovation, you've got to allow people to fail. And the only way that people can grow is if they recognize that failure will not get held against them.
Yeah.
I think being able to create growth and innovation is a lot around being able to say that innovation, risk, and failure are three sides of the same coin. So a bit of innovation on that is even thinking that there could be three sides to a coin, right?
That is such a great share. The fact that you actually compared this to investment, and investment in people is the only long term, and you suddenly moved it from OPEX to CAPEX. So thank you for sharing that. Following that thought, the second question I have is, can you share some initiatives that you've taken to establish, the organization's voice on digital platforms and your unique identity? You're investing so much in people, right? Like your philosophy around learning and investing in people is so robust. So are you looking at sharing that, and how are you sharing that across, different platforms and across the globe?
So, the big challenge about investing or showcasing on platforms is one is, of course, there is always an ethical dilemma, which is, are you boasting too much? That's point number one. Yeah. Point number two, people have everything these days. The one thing that is in short supply is time, which means how is it that you're able to gather attention in a short period of time? The third is, how is it, to continue with the CAPEX analogy, what is it that you're doing that allows you to invest for the long term, right? So anything that you do, any change, any initiative, anything that you put in needs to be sustainable. It's only that, and if you look at it from a real life perspective, right? The best marriages are the one that survive over a period of time, not because they're 50-50, but because, you recognize, you adapt, you change. And that's how it really works, right? Very often. So some of the initiatives, for example, that we've kind of tried to do, and maybe I'll delve a little bit deeper into one, because that's a story of investment.
Yeah.
In 2017, or around the time of 2017, for the organization that we were, it's interesting that you couldn't even count the number of women who worked in our plants on one finger. And that is because the number was zero.
Yeah.
Right? In 2024, on Women's Day, we celebrated 1,000 plus women that we have in our plants exclusively on the manufacturing side.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at it, what's the story, right? What's the big deal? You added 1,000 women to your workforce in 6 years. The key is that you have added this in a tire industry, which no one in the world has been able to do.
Yeah.
Second is, this is a physically demanding job sometimes, right? You've got to be in a position to lift weights, transfer weights, stuff like that, right? So, I mean, keep aside the whole concept of, changing mindsets, changing culture, changing transformation. It is changing the physical dimensions of how is it that you want to make this happen.
Yeah.
Point number 3, we combined this with an initiative that we have to committed, that combines some of our thinking that's there on social responsibility. So we recruited all of these women from areas where employment was scarce. So we went, into Jharkhand. We've done this in Bihar, and we've got all of these people to come in. All of these young women who we hired as women apprenticeship trainees, who came in, and they came into our plants, which are nowhere close to these parts, right? So there's a social responsibility because you're taking care of young girls who are staying away from their home for the first time. So there is a responsibility you have as a brand to say, listen, you're giving your daughter to me for a professional purpose. I will take care of her, right? And interestingly, the greatest investment that we needed to do, when we got these, women apprenticeship trainees to start working with us, Jyoti, you know what it was? It was investing in their health, because we needed to train them to be able to be confident enough mentally and physically to transfer and transport tires that weighed sometimes twice their body weight, thrice their body weight. So the investment was not in terms of what's the tire technology. It's about what's the kind of food you should be eating in your diet that will make you stronger.
Yeah.
So when you focus on investments of that nature, I always say that an initiative like this, is not about counting the numbers, but in fact, it's about making the numbers count. And the only way in which you can make that happen is to say the returns that I will deliver is not in terms of just an initiative of counting the numbers. But for example, there is one line that's called the TBR line, which is the truck and bus radials line that we have, that is managed exclusively by women completely. And it is the highest rate of productivity we have in the entire company. So to my mind, that's a business case of an investment that we made. And we didn't start out with this expectation, right? That this has to be the most productive line.
Yeah.
But today, no one asked the question. So it's just a simple example of when you invest in something that you believe is the right thing to do, you've got to allow time for it to work. So a lot of our initiatives, be it around learning, be it around the kind of talent that we want to recruit, be it around the time that we invest around technology to come out with a best-in-class product, be it in terms of being able to always stay very close to what a consumer says. So we pride ourselves on customer centricity. All of these are investments that we've made over a period of time. And what we suddenly find is that the mindset of the organization, therefore, is very different now compared to what it used to be.
Yeah.
So we are not focusing on a financial outcome to say we have to grow twice as fast as the industry. I mean, of course, that's a good objective to have. But finally, that's an outcome. We don't start with that; we end up with that, right? So that's one way in which I've just taken an example of a deep dive in one initiative that we believe really is important for us.
No, I'm sure there are many, as you said, from a learning perspective as well.
Yeah.
How are you using this to really create that brand or create that visibility in future talent pools? So how are you using that? The objective to check if how are you using this to sort of elevate some of the great work you're doing is to see how are you thinking about your brand? How are you thinking about using a lot of the great work you're doing to attract talent?
So a lot of what we do, Jyoti, around this is to make sure that when we, for example, interview people, right, or when we are looking at jobs, the amount of information that we give people, and we're now in the process of piloting an initiative wherein we tell people that, would you like to speak to, once, they've got to a stage wherein we'd like to make an offer, etc. We tell them, would you like to speak to 3 people in our company, right? And you tell us what are the kind of people that you would like to speak to, so that you get a sense. And by the way, we won't tell them you're going to be reaching out. right? So it's almost like blind tasting. To say, go ahead, get a pulse yourself so that you have a better idea of what is it that you're looking for. That is one. Second is we've started doing a lot of hiring that's outside the conventional, traditional tire industry. So if you look at people that we get in pricing, a lot of people that we're getting in sales, a lot of people, I mean, of course, product development and product management obviously does involve a domain, but everywhere else, we are beginning to look at people who are completely from outside the industry. And then, of course, it involves a little bit of investment for people to know, what is it that it takes for them to be able to work through. The other thing that we've now realized is the earlier paradigm always used to be hire for skills and train for attitude, right? We've now turned that paradigm on its head, wherein we say we hire for attitude, we can always train for skills. So that's the big change in some ways that we are making from a hiring perspective that is kind of coming through for us.
You've sort of summarized, I think, the modern learning journey for I think all industries. I think it's important to hire for attitude, and skills can be taught. This is beautiful segue into my next question, that how are you using, data and insights? I know you mentioned you're already looking at skills and that's how you're hiring cross industry, but how are you looking at some of this data and insights on skill availability, some of the top skills and just movements across the industry? I know so that you can address some of the gaps, right? Even from a manufacturing perspective, even from an auto ancillary perspective, skills are continuously evolving. So how are you using, data, insights, talent movements, just demand and supply to better inform your strategy?
Yeah, so what we do is we constantly keep talking to people outside, right? So I mean, traditionally, a lot of forums, for example, that we would attend would be industry specific.
Yeah.
Now what we are doing is we are making it function specific. So my head of supply chain, for example, will not when he goes out and chats with people, it's not people who are from the tire industry. He chats with people who are supply chain specialists, right? Because if you look at it, the biggest problem that supply chain or logistics guys are facing today has nothing to do with the tire industry. It's about the challenge that they're in the Red Sea, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you have to address that, you don't have to go and talk to somebody specifically from the manufacturing domain or the tire industry domain. You need to talk to somebody in shipping, in logistics. So one simple way that we're doing is when you get insight for a function, right? Because there are very few functions now, like I said, except for some development, some technology that really are industry specific.
Yeah.
The moment you change that, then it means that you can speak to anybody in the world around something on supply chain. Yeah.
Yep.
That is one. The second is we are focusing a lot more on trying to hire talent from industries that traditionally have been consumer facing. So it could be FMCG, if it could be durables, it could be telecom, it could be some of those. So what happens is, by definition, the people that you're trying to hire come with a mindset where it's ingrained. So the whole point is, why do you need to reinvent when imitation is the sincerest form of flattery? So
Yeah.
you know that FMCG companies do well. Just go ahead and get somebody from there who can do that, that particular piece, right? So I always say the world is a beautiful place because there are so many skilled people out there. All you need to do is look.
Yeah.
That's one. The second is when you are able to marry interest with opportunity. So when you tell people that you have an opportunity to work for a company that has the Japanese ethos of humility, right? And the how shall I say, the passion and the aggression of customer centricity. You really have got a unique combination, right? It's almost like when you're seeking a groom or a bride for your kid, you're always looking for the best of everything, right?
Yeah.
It's almost along those lines, wherein you're saying, by the way, you have opportunity to learn, you have opportunity to grow. You can work from anywhere in the world, literally. So we are saying if you really want to experience the joy of working in what we like to call as a startup, which is backed by an investor who's Japanese, who has lent his or her name to you, you've really got a winning combination, right? So where talent meets opportunity, or where mindset meets, how shall I say, skills, or attitude meets skills, is where so it's almost like a marketplace that you're trying to create where buyers meet sellers kind of thing to kind of make that happen.
No, that's such a unique perspective. Talent meeting opportunity, mindset meeting skills. And I love the way you said, right? The Japanese ethos plus the the passion aggression of India. I think that's like the entire value proposition that, just the startup phase or just that combination, which no other player has. So I think that's very well said. And I think the movement, as you said, right, from industry to functional focus, I think that's really defining. My follow-up question to that is, how are you seeing that pan out with internal mobility? I know you said that people come in and then they really move. So how is internal mobility important? How are you measuring it? Is that something that also is a driver of career success for people at your company?
So, we are in early stages of that journey. I mean, to be honest, we've otherwise, people have seen their growth only in particular verticals. So a salesperson is always a salesperson for life. A manufacturing person always, has got to be in a factory for life. So that is going to be the tough part for us, right?
Yeah.
Because we've not traditionally, and I mean that's typically true of any manufacturing, largely manufacturing centered setups that you have. This is always a challenge. What we're doing is that we are creating what we like to call as a 2 by 2 by 2, which is that in order to get beyond a particular level, you should have worked with at least two bosses in at least two functions, at least across two geographies. So automatically, so what that does is people now, and again, like I said, we early days in this journey, and it's hard to say whether this will succeed or not. But like everything else we've done, you've got to take the shot, right?
Yeah.
When there is an opportunity, you've got to take the shot. So now people will eventually beginning to realize that even if I move laterally, right, it's an investment I'm making in my career. So the moment you say that growth is not just vertical, right, growth can be sideways as well.
Yeah.
You've conquered the battle from an individual employee perspective. From a manager perspective, right, we are actively encouraging people to become CEOs, and CEO is Chief Export Officer, which means how much of your talent are you willing to export? Because traditionally people hold back to talent, saying, this is my person, this is my talent. And what we're saying is, if if you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it has failed, right? So it's got to go away from you. If it succeed, so I mean, again, yeah, it comes back to the first question that I answered, right? Which is that the only job that a talent mindset has is to train people.
Yeah.
It's to make sure that you're investing in people's growth. Now, obviously, this is going to be a tough one because you also have a business to run, right? Very often, leaders have come back and in a nice way, tried to tell me that we are not in the business of training people, right? We are in the business of selling tires, and that is true. So, where is it that we are able to find that balance to be able to make that switch or that journey, wherein we tell people, how is it that you're able to democratize all jobs in the company? How is it that you're able to tell people, if you let people go, that's when people will want to come and work for you because you will actually be seen as a talent magnet. Traveling to base camp is one level of journey, which I think we are on. Our true journey will be to be able to scale Mount Everest.
Yeah.
And the good thing about wanting to scale Mount Everest is there are many routes you can take. So you don't have to be confined to doing things in a particular way. But right now we are on our journey to make sure that we get to the base camp, right?
Yeah. No, I think very, very well said. I think I love the Chief Export Officer. If we can get an ounce of that in some of our companies, I think we'll all be open to internal mobility, despite, sentiment, ups and downs. I think that for me really stood out. Uh, I think my next question is like, how are you driving your team to build like a learning culture? Because they are global teams, and and there are different cultural nuances, there are different generational nuances, and different people like to learn differently. So how are you really creating a learning culture within your organization, and how do you see like technology enabling that?
So sometimes this can be an incredibly complicated topic because there is so much to cover. And, what I've always found is when you keep things simple is when magic happens. So what we do is two very simple things. One is we say that there are certain things that we as an organization view as critical. So, for example, it could be technology, it could be collaboration, it could be customer centricity, and it could be empathy. I'm just, picking out four. And what we say is, hey, listen, this is important for us as an organization. So therefore, we will roll out whatever needs to be done to make sure that you succeed in this company. So these are 4 priorities we are rolling out, and we're doing this, right? So people know that this is an organizational priority that they need to align themselves with, and then you provide the requisite, information, tools, et cetera, to make that happen. So then you are appealing to the individual, to say, what does it take to succeed in Yokohama?
Yeah.
The second, higher order that we like to appeal to is to say, what makes you a better professional and a better individual? And this extends beyond the scope of simply being at Yokohama. And that's where we've actually democratized learning. So we've told people, who are we to determine what are the kind of learnings that you would like to have, right? So let's come in and let's get out a suite of opportunities that you have. Create what we call as a digital learning wallet, right? So there is X amount of money that's available for you. Can you make sure that you invest it in something that is important for your development? And we don't want to second guess what that is, right? We've put out how you can grow. We've called out organizational priorities. But I always say that at the end of the day, we are all accountable for one career, and that is our own. Everyone else can facilitate it. So if you need to invest in your development, make a choice. And nobody forces it, right? We don't count number of hours. We don't reward people, who do a lot of learning, etc. We say there is some investment you've got to do in your own self. And I mean, you've talked about the relevance of internal and external fitness. It's exactly the same, right? If you don't believe that this is important for you, the only person you're fooling is yourself. Yeah. So what we do is we democratize, we allow people to have access to multiple sets of learning. I mean, we've talked of, some of the work that we're doing with LinkedIn Learning, wherein people kind of invest in their own development. And we do it in a way that lets people know that we are doing this not because this is important for us. That we've already done with the 4 priorities we've called out. We are doing this because we believe this is important for you. So make a choice. And what we found is magic happens because people have great amount of clarity.
No, I think that the simplicity is the key. So I think you've said so many things. I mean, you said democratizing jobs, and you said democratizing learning, and the choice with people, and that's, when magic happens. And just removing the pressure from counting or measuring all of it, so that, the joy of learning and the difference, the cheering can happen. I think that's such a unique way of looking at learning culture, because sometimes we get so caught up in measuring and making things perfect that we forget that the joy of learning is what's important and growth is what's important. So I think thank you for sharing that. We recently published a jobs on the rise report, and obviously we're seeing that a lot of jobs that were 10 years ago, the jobs that were there don't exist now, right? So we are starting to see newer jobs come in, like some of the ones are sustainability engineer, AI analyst. Those didn't exist years ago. But we're also starting to see that apart from technology skills, soft skills are becoming very important, especially with the advent of AI, right? The last 5 years, we saw jobs evolve at an average of 25%. We will see this accelerate in the next 7 to 8 years to 55 to 60%. And with AI, newer jobs are getting created on the way. So how are you seeing soft skills, and how are you really incorporating that in some of the key priorities? I know you shared some insight, but would love to see how are we really preparing for soft skills and for skills of the future.
So I always like to say that AI may be very good, but AI can never beat artificial intelligence can never beat natural stupidity, right? And what I essentially mean by that is that technology is a tough master, but a very loyal servant. So you've got to decide how you want to use technology. So for example, you can use it for stuff that's repetitive. You can use it, for shortlisting, for parsing, for getting the right set of, information, for automating a lot of processes that otherwise, require, how shall I say, manual intervention, etc. All of that. So while you can do, the point of doing all of that is not to eliminate the human touch. In fact, it is to elevate it. Because if you've got your time freed up, that is the time that you need to do to be able to engage, with people. See, I'm a great believer in what I like to call as high touch engagement. So very often, in the organization, there are times when, the HR team, myself included, just walks into someone's room, assuming they're not busy, of course, and say, no, listen, I'm just here to just have a cup of coffee. And we've got some really good coffee at the office. So I say, why don't we just have a cup of coffee? This is a no agenda conversation. Now, people find that hard because how can a conversation with HR be without any agenda, right? So, initially when we did this, people were like, okay, now tell me why you here? Why you here? I say, we just came to say hello. We had absolutely no other reason to kind of come by. And it's interesting because in conversations like this, you have to do it again. It's about the story of investment, right? If you do it one time, two times, three times, four times, and then people start talking to you, right?
Yeah.
So then you realize, right, that there is the power of a conversation is something that people really miss in today's day and age. It's really so tough, so difficult. So, I mean, you can have the best quality of town halls, you can, create learning posts, listening posts. But if you treat employees the same way as I believe you should treat your consumers or customers, which is the principle is N is equal to 1. So every employee is unique. Every individual is unique. You've got to invest that time.
No, this is amazing. I think for a beginning journey, I'm just listening to it. The fact that you said every employee is unique, every employee's journey is unique. I think not only shows the fact that you're invested overall, but it also shows that you want to make sure that every person succeeds, right? And you want to make sure that you are looking at it from a diversity, inclusion, and belonging lens, right? We want even the example you shared around women, right? Like, or just empowering communities or empowering those families. I think it just shows this really strong culture that you're trying to build. And you know how learning really falls. As I said, the joy of learning is coming so relevant. I can see the joy of learning, and I can see the joy of you investing in people. So that's fantastic. And thank you for sharing that. I'm already feeling joyous and more motivated as a result of this. I think my last question is going to be around the buzzword, which is AI. We're seeing this really pan out in different ways. Some folks are saying it's going to revolutionize the way talent, recruitment happens, the way upskilling happens, and how we really look at the future of hiring. So curious to know what's your take on this and how are you looking at it from an internal adoption perspective?
So look, we've struggled a little bit with this because we still are trying to figure out what the hype is all about, right? And the reason why I say that is, sure, it can help you shortlist better. I understand that, right? Sure, it can help you do things faster. Yeah, absolutely. But what else does it do beyond that, right? It can't do your job. So it can help you, I mean, there are people that I've seen that talk of, tomorrow, the softwares are such that, they can instantly tell you based on a set of characteristics, etc., all of that. And I'm saying the assumption there again is around commoditization and generalization. And I hate it when we classify people like that, right? We are not a commodity, right? We are all individuals, right? We have an identity.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying this in fear of technology or, not wanting to use it. But like I always say, the idea is to make life easier. It's not meant to do your job.
Yeah.
It's just meant to make things easier. So does it expand scope of what all you could look at? Absolutely.
Yes.
I find it particularly useful when you've got a huge bunch. So let's say you were to go to an engineering campus and, where there are 1,500 people and you need to get a shortlisting done.
Yeah.
Will AI be able to do it faster? Absolutely. But the final hiring decision really needs to stay with you. Where AI can work from an upskilling perspective is two ways, right? If it frees up time of people by how shall I say?
Automating some of the
Predictive, repetitive processes, right? It allows people and it frees up their time to be able to do something of a higher order. So what it does is it automatically creates a mindset of someone who, if he or she is willing to invest in higher order, then that this person is worth investing in. If there is resistance to be able to bring this in the first place, then you know that this is not something that's going to be working for a while. So it helps do a little bit of that. But again, I say, that there was a time when we were talking of digital cloning, right, as the next big thing, etc., and all of that. And at some stage, it just died its natural death, right? So I would say the jury is out a little bit on how much AI can actually do. Can it help? Of course. Will it support? 100%. Does it help me make PowerPoint presentations in 10 minutes that used to take me 3 hours earlier? 100%. The question is, what do I do in the 2 hours and 50 minutes that are left? And that
Hopefully
question
the joy
AI
of
cannot
learning.
answer for me.
Hopefully the joy of learning.
Oh, absolutely, right? So and by the way, I can use AI to enable that as well,
Yes.
intuitively to tell me what should I be learning about. So it's a great enabler, right? It just allows me to do more and more. So, anything that I'm a great fan of anything that frees up your time, because that's the only commodity we have that is perishable. It will run out, right?
Yeah.
Everything else, sadly, looking at the stock markets today, people could say financial capital is also finite. But given, that apart, time is the only perishable commodity we have. Anything that allows us to extend that, which AI does, great. But, how shall I say? Uh, the way I like to look at it is it's important to recognize its importance, but it's important also to ensure that it doesn't become the center of your existence. That's the way I would see it.
I think very well shared. Obviously, automating some of the mundane tasks and getting some hours, hopefully to do things better, invest in yourself, increase your productivity, or to just make it easier to learn, right? I mean, I think one of the things we're seeing play out with our AI and learning tool is just to see how everybody is adapting to it in the flow of work. So I think just making it easier, as you said, to be flexible, adaptable, and learning in the flow of work, I think is really critical. But thank you for sharing. I think this was the most joyous conversation I've had, and I'm feeling so motivated to learn after this. So thank you, Amit, for
So
sharing.
thanks,
My
thanks,
last
thanks so much,
question.
Jyoti.
Jyoti, Amit, thank you so much. I think this has been a terrific chat. And
Thank
on
you so
that
much.
note, a big thank you to our speakers and our viewers for joining us today. Uh, for them, do not hesitate to reach out to Amit, to Jyoti for further exploration on this topic and to learn more. And also stay tuned for many more path breaking conversations coming your way this season. Thank you for joining in.